The United States withdrawal from Afghanistan has been completed. What next? We try and find out whether America will still be able to maintain its anti-terrorism program on the ground. And here with us to help us in this conversation, Thembisa Ebrahim Fakude, Senior Research Fellow, Africa-Asia Dialogues. Good to have you with us, Thembisa. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And the final troops departed Afghanistan on Monday, shortly before midnight, the local time there. But you'll remember in that speech that the President of the United States, Joe Biden, mentioned was that their mission in Afghanistan continues and will always be as it was since the case of Osama bin Laden, and that is to prevent it from being used as a base from which terrorists can attack Americans. I mean, unfortunately, we've got the Taliban now in charge. The question becomes, who will win this one? Who will get there first? Will the Americans be able to continue their anti-terrorism program, or will Taliban now fully take over?
Well, globally, the Americans will continue with their anti-terrorism mission. But when it comes to Afghanistan, they have no choice now but to work with the Taliban. And they've indicated that they are going to be working with the Taliban moving forward. Joe Biden has said it and confirmed it, that they are going to be working with the Taliban because they need the Taliban. The Taliban is the current power in Afghanistan. And notwithstanding that many people have criticized the United States of leaving their weaponry and all other things that we've seen the Taliban assuming over the past couple of days, including the American uniform, that is the soldiers' uniform that they've started donning hours after the Americans left Kabul. It was a prearranged deal between the Americans and the Taliban that they will leave some of their assets behind in order for them to facilitate or to kickstart the government of Afghanistan as they begin to lead Afghanistan. So yes, they've left a lot of things behind, and it was in a rush and abrupt as it's now been established. But some of the equipment that was left behind was deliberate, and it was a pre-arrangement between themselves and the Taliban, facilitated by Qatar.
How long should we wait, I mean, before we see a strike from Taliban or even terrorists beginning to build up their external attack capabilities?
Well, Taliban is going to attack who now? Because there's no one else to attack. They are in power in government. They have to establish some semblance of safety and security in Afghanistan. What we have seen over the past couple of days, though, is the emergence of the new franchise of ISIS or ISIL. They call themselves ISIL-K, which stands for Khorasan. So these are the people who are seeking to secede from Afghan proper. They are part, or they used to be part of ISIS, and now they've started their own outfit. And those are the people that threaten to destabilize Afghanistan moving forward. And those are the people that are likely to clash with the Taliban, because they are the new Taliban or the new terrorists within Afghanistan, who are once again using armed resistance to further their ambitions. So the challenge for the Taliban now is no longer the United States. They are likely to work together moving forward. Yeah. The challenge for the Taliban now will be ISIS-K or ISIS-Khorasan, the guys that have started bombing certain targets within Afghanistan. Not even Al-Qaeda. Most people believe that Al-Qaeda is likely to work closely with Afghanistan, because Afghanistan is in this position due to the fact that they refused to hand over Osama bin Laden, the leader of Al-Qaeda. So the relationship between Al-Qaeda and Afghanistan, Al-Qaeda and the Taliban is much more warmer compared to ISIS. So they've got two major challenges. One is ISIS proper, which is the Islamic State in Iraq and Levant. And the other challenge will be the Islamic State in Iraq and Levant, Khorasan, which is ISIL-K. So those are the two, I think, formations that will test the resolve and the capability of the Taliban of leading moving forward.
Now, top of the list, of course, part of the challenges that the U.S. face now is, I suppose for them, the safety of the Americans that remained behind, that were blocked by the Taliban, that couldn't get out. But secondly, the allies of Afghanistan, or maybe even the allies of the United States. How will they be able to manage that particular situation without having troops on the ground?
Well, many of them have indicated willingness to work with the Taliban. We know that there's, for example, the Dutch government yesterday announced that they are going to, notwithstanding that they'll be moving their embassy from Kabul to Doha, but they will continue working with the Taliban. The Americans have insisted on keeping their embassy in Kabul. So there will be that working relationship moving forward, because I think the Western powers, both the US and the Europeans, realize that there is no way forward without the involvement of the Taliban in politics of Afghanistan. So they will have to work with the Taliban. And the Taliban has indicated that this is the Taliban 2.0. It's not the old Taliban, which embrace all sorts of conservative politics. They are willing to engage with the West. They open up, they claim, they'll open up schools for girls. They will open up for full participation of women in all spheres of society. So we'll have to wait and see. But when it comes to working relations moving forward, all indications suggest that the Europeans and Americans will be working with the Taliban. And it's expected that countries like Qatar, who have been facilitating the negotiations between these two, between the Europeans, Americans, and the Taliban, will continue playing a significant role.
Of course, I mean, I suppose those negotiations will also need to go further into the question of humanitarian support, or the humanitarian concern for the Afghan people, who up until this point, their economy and governance has been pretty much propped up by foreign funds. I mean, are those funds going to immediately dry up?
Well, they are drying up. And this is why I do believe that the Taliban will have no choice. The easy part is over, which was the armed struggle. Now it's the test begins of leading a country and making sure that you attract investment, making sure that you normalize the politics, and you provide safety and security for your people. So they have no choice now but to embrace new forms of politics. If they don't do so, they will have problem in terms of funding their government projects. They will have problems in terms of ensuring that aid continues to flow to the desperate pockets within Afghanistan. So they do understand that. And I think negotiations are afoot now between themselves, Europeans and Americans, to ensure that they open up all of those sources. We know that the IMF and all other European funders, including the World Bank, have since suspended, and some have, withheld some of the deposits that belonged to the government of Afghanistan, which would have been used at this desperate moment to alleviate certain, emergencies within Afghanistan. So the negotiations to try and suspend those restrictions in terms of funding coming into Afghanistan have started. So we'll have to wait and see. But the Taliban has got no choice right now. They will have to lead, and they will have to do diplomacy and make sure that they attract the goodwill of the Europeans and Americans in order to develop Afghanistan, which has been devastated by war over the past 2 decades.
And I know the Americans are saying this is an end of a 2-decade civil war, but what's the likelihood that some low-scale civil war will continue still in Afghanistan, at least for a while?
There is that likelihood, because it might not necessarily be in the whole of Afghanistan, because the Taliban is quite well entrenched, particularly in the rural areas of Afghanistan. But in Kabul, the Taliban will face some serious challenge, because Kabul is very polarized politically. You've got a lot of factions in Kabul. So it will have to do real serious politics or politicking in Afghanistan, in Kabul, to ensure peace and stability. But yes, you're correct. The likelihood of a civil war, particularly in Kabul, is likely. We have already seen over the past at least 7 days, there have been about 4 to 5 bombs. 2 of those were devastating. outside the Kabul airport, Hamid Karzai airport in Kabul. So it is already, the signs are there. ISIS-K, which is ISIS Khorasan, has started already ripping havoc in some areas in Kabul. So the likelihood of a civil war remains, but again, it depends on the skill of the Taliban moving forward on how they will negotiate with both ISIS, that is ISIS proper and the ISIS-K.
Thembisa Fakude, I appreciate your time. And time now for the hard questions. I'll have you back on soon, and we'll tackle the question of why did the U.S. policy fail next time we chat to you. Thank you very much for coming on. Senior Research Fellow at Africa Asia Dialogue, Thembisa Ebrahim Fakude.